Hey, good evening, folks. Welcome back to Zoom Daily with Rabbi Shlomo Schwartz to a realistic map of meaning, where we are reading one of his wonderful books, and he's been teaching us some wonderful points on prayer. So let's just see how the rabbi's doing tonight. Shalom, Rabbi Schwartz. You're live on the Noahide World Center, and we're going to turn the class over to you.
Thank you very much, Dan. And I've got the share screen, so I'm going to hit that button and turn over here to, you should have the text of the prayer makes you aware on your screen. Is that right?
Yeah, I got it.
Okay. And so I want to carry on just a quick review on what we were doing yesterday with prayer. And that was I introduced, first of all, I introduced that this is the first of three blessings of the Amida, which is the prayer wherein we ask God for what we want. And every day, actually, we say it 3 times a day, 4 times on the Shabbos and other holidays. The middle changes, but the first and last 3 blessings always remain the same. And this is the beginning of those 3 blessings that started off. So they're always the same. And I wanted to emphasize why it's always the same and what the power of it is. And I said yesterday, and I'm repeating right now, that I believe the whole structure of the prayer that was composed by the sages of the Great Sanhedrin back in the days of Ezra, the prophet, his court that had prophets on it. So they composed this prayer to give everybody the right words to say, and they built it on something Moshe had said. Moshe the prophet had said in the Torah, and that was he used these 3 words after Hakel, the force, which is here.
Yep, the great, the powerful, the awesome.
Normally translated as Almighty. I've struck that out because it really refers to force, and then the adjectives: the great, the powerful, and the awesome. And I believe these 3 words, which are the only 3 words that we have that Moshe described his personal experience with seeing God. He saw God more clearly than everybody else. These are the 3 words he used to describe that experience. And I wanted to investigate them because everything's built on them, and yet they seem to be so too simple, too non-descriptive. Great doesn't mean anything. It can mean whatever you want it to mean, which means nothing. So powerful is, of course, God's powerful, and awesome. Okay, we'll have to deal with that. So, so the great actually in Hebrew is a translation of this word up here that I'm hovering my cursor over, and it reads Hagadol, which is large, really large. Gadol is big, large. So it's really saying the large. Now, you can't say large about God because God has no body. So it just doesn't start.
Yeah, above space and time, sure.
When I started contemplating this, I was driving myself crazy. I didn't see anybody that had commented on this, explain it, and yet everybody seems to accept this great or large or big, and it just didn't make sense. Well, I thought about it until I finally tried. You try so many different things when you're stuck. So I tried its opposite. And the opposite is what twigged me to a deep thought. The opposite of the gadol, of large, big, is katan, and which is small. But that word, for some reason, illuminated my mind, whereas the other one didn't. The word katan, small, is halachically refers to a minor, a child who has not yet reached the age of majority, so they're not responsible. So we talk about if he's a katan or she's a katana, then they're not responsible. They don't have to do anything because they're not yet of age. They can't make a decision. We train them. We were adults are responsible. We're training them and getting them used to do the right thing, but it's not up to them. So when I had that insight, I realized that we were talking about God in the sense of not a minor, but the opposite, an adult. The large means someone who's responsible, someone who is mature. And someone who's mature, the difference between someone who's mature and someone who's immature is that the mature person takes responsibility for what's going on. And they make sure that everything is working right. And that's exactly the nature of the blessing after the first three words that is describing God, who bestows benefits and kindness, who possesses everything, who remembers the piety of the patriarchs, who brings a redeemer to the children's children for the sake of his name with love, King, helper, deliverer, and shield. The source of all blessings are you, Adonai, shield of Avram. You look after everything. You're the adult in the room. That is what he's saying, is that God wants to make sure everything's working right. God is there to make sure that everything's running properly, that we're properly endowed, and so on. Takes responsibility for everything. That is a great insight, because what it's saying is, especially in this first phrase, who bestows kindness. That's what an adult does. An adult is kind to everybody around them because they've got everything they need. They're the ones providing for everybody. And that's how you have to think of God. So as you start to pray for things you need, you have to remind yourself that God wants to give it to you. Beneficent kindness. He wants to help you. If you're praying thinking that God can't hear me or isn't interested in me or somehow is angry with me or doesn't want to provide with me, wants to, so then you're on the wrong track. You're not praying with confidence. You have to pray with the confidence that God wants to help you. So that's the first thing that you have to remind yourself about. And that's what this whole first blessing is trying to hammer in to our minds, because again, can't see God and we lose sight, literally lose sight that he's there. And so you have to keep reminding yourself that God is there and he wants to help. He really wants to help. So why doesn't he? The next verse, the powerful, or why he seems not to be helping? Well, powerful is that this is another thing. What does Moshe have to tell me that God is powerful? And here's the Hebrew word, gibor. It's up here, gibor. So this takes me to, as soon as I said that word, I was reminded of a phrase from Ethics of the Fathers, Pirkei Avot, that says, a zehu gibor, who is a gibor, a hero, a strong person, a mighty person. What kind of person is that? And the Mishnah, the rabbis say, someone who conquers their own nature. If you really want to show how powerful you are, then you should be able to conquer your own nature. But when you say that of God, that's exactly what's going on, is that God has created the world, and he's created with all these thoughts in mind that I'm creating it so that it'll work, so that it'll blossom, so that people will develop, so that people will have what they need and be able to do the right things and so on. So he's put everything in place, including the challenges, everything that challenges us and makes us work to accomplish something which is so important to our feeling of empowerment and ability. That gives us a sense of that we count, that we have a self. So God provides all these challenges to us. And here are some of the challenges that we have in the second blessing. Let me just get down here, right? Resurrector of the dead, powerful one to deliver us, sustainer of the living, with kindliness, resurrector of the, this is, right? With great mercy, supporter of the fallen, healer of the sick, releaser of the imprisoned. Well, who made us fall? Who made us sick? Who imprisoned us? And who put us to death, that we're sleeping in the dust? That's all from God, because he's got a plan and he's enacting the plan. So all these problems that we write, they're all there so that we'll overcome, so that we'll achieve something, so we'll do this, so we'll do that. So now when we come around to ask, and this is key, I want you to think about this carefully. When we come around to ask, I want you, God, to do this for me. I want you to do this, do that. What are we asking? He's trying to help us in the first place. And so he set up the whole world with everything. He's putting each one of us in a Garden of Eden. Everything is there, everything that we need. It's all there. It's all designed for us to be the best humans we can. So we come along and say, Pana, it's not working. It's not working. You got to provide this. What are you kidding? I thought of everything. I provide everything for you. So, but because you're asking, God is so powerful that he can overcome his own nature. His nature was to provide for you, but because you're asking for something, you want it a different way, I'll reorder the whole universe just to satisfy your request. Sounds impossible, but God can do that. God has the infinite power to reorder everything just simply because you ask. Now your ask has to be genuine. It has to work out with everything else. If you're asking, make me a wealthy man, that's going to hurt you. When like they say, all those people that win lotteries in the short time, the money's all gone, and they've wrecked their relationships with the people they had. It's not a good idea. Nevertheless, that's because
Yeah, it's a challenge a lot of people invite for sure, isn't it?
right. Wasn't really a good idea to get all that stuff. But since you're asking for what you want, God is powerful enough to reorder the whole world so that you'll be able to have that. So when you're praying and asking for something, not only must you remember that God is wants to give it to you, but he's capable of giving it to you, even though originally it wasn't meant to be. But he'll reorder things and make it meant to be just simply because you asked. It has to be a genuine request. But if you're ready to run with it, he'll provide it. Last part of the blessing. This is the difference where it goes different. Here in the thing, Moshe said awesome, but we don't say awesome. We say holy. Here in the last one, the holy one. What's the difference between the holy one and the awesome one? The awesome, if I see something and I say it's awesome, it means I saw it and it made a new impression on me. It's awesome. You go to, I live near Niagara Falls, and often if you don't see it every day, even though you've seen it many times, you go and you look at the water, all that water rushing over the cliff. It's just awesome. Just the feeling of power is awesome. It impresses me. But I guess the guys that work there, they see it every day. It's not going to impress them. So that's the difference between awesome and holy. Holy is something you can't see. So we don't see God. We can't see. Moshe was able to see God and see the awesomeness each time. To him, it was always new, it was always awesome, there's always something new to observe. That's how clearly he saw God. We don't see God that clearly, so we don't see it. So we say, you're just holy, you're separate from us. What that means is that when you're making a prayer, you have to remind yourself, A, that God wants to help you, B, that he can help you. He's got the resources to reorder the whole world just to help you. But C, and this is most important, you'll never see it coming from God. God helped you, but you'll never see it coming from God. You'll never recognize it. God is separate, he's holy. It's not something you'll see all the time. And therefore, and so you pray, I want to be wealthy. Well, you don't get the millions of dollars, but you know what? You get what you needed at that moment. Something happened, somebody did something, somebody averted something from you. So you wound up having what you needed, exactly what you were asking for. Maybe it's not exactly what you thought of, but it's what you really needed. And so God provides it when you asking it for properly, but you'll never see it coming from God. And that's why you don't have the faith in the first place that you're going to get answered, because we never see it coming from God. But that's why you have to remind yourself that you want to help me, you can help me.
Everything comes from God. Yeah.
And I'm not seeing it come from you. I don't see it coming from my prayers, but it's coming. So that way you can pray with confidence that it's happening. So I think that's a powerful message, and one we should keep in
For
mind.
sure.
And that's why we start off always with these same three blessings to remind ourselves of that thing before we start asking for exactly what we might like to have. So now I'm going to stop this share, or let's see, try this. We got up to chapter 3, and I see I didn't put it on myself, so I have to come over here.
I got it up.
I don't know if I can share your stuff. Let's see. Are you putting it up?
No, no, I
Okay.
can't show you and it. But when you're using the share screen, I'm putting you up in a pop-up window.
Right. So I just have to come over here and chapter 3. We're going to start reading chapter 3 today. Yeah, science helps with nothing. I come over here, share the screen, and it should be there. Am I right?
Got it. Yep.
Science helps with nothing. Okay. So since it's just you and I, Dan, I guess we'll take turns reading. You start off.
Right on. Science helps with nothing. And like I said the other day, people need to always remember that science is nothing more than the methodology of nature. Nothing more. That's all it's ever been. It describes methodology, nothing else. Let's see what the rabbi has written. Since life did happen and it couldn't have been an accident, scientists of previous generations were grievously mistaken for denying God. It behooves current scientists to redeem their craft. Can anything help them do that? It seems to me that nothing can, but I mean that in a positive way.
Okay. And Ronald, welcome back, Ronald.
Okay.
So you guys just in time to start reading.
Okay. We're from Science Tells Us. Sorry, because I was looking everywhere because I just got connected.
Yes, you're exactly right.
Science tells us that everything is composed of energy. All the material things we see in the universe are different from forms of energy. This is the meaning of the famous equation E equals mc squared, in which E stands for energy, M stands for mass or material things, and C stands for the speed of light. Expressed in a different order, M equals E slash C squared. Any mass or material thing, M, is composed of energy, E, slowed way down by dividing it with huge number of the square of the speed of light, C2. Actually, there is one other ingredient in everything beside energy, but it is hardly ever noticed, even though it is the major ingredient. You don't notice it because it is misnamed. Ever hear the phrase, nothing important? Turn that around to identify the major ingredient. It is the important nothing. I'll explain by quoting from my high school physics.
Okay, let's go back to Dan.
I learned in high school that all material is made up of atoms that have three major components: neutrons, protons, and electrons. Although the level of detail may have been upgraded since then, the basic idea remains the same. In the nucleus, the center, there are no charged neutrons and positively charged neutrons. The negatively charged
protons. No charged neutrons and positively charged protons.
Protons. The negatively charged electrons form a surrounding cloud above the center. These three components insist on staying together. When we try to split them, we get an atomic bomb. Atoms are microscopic, but suppose you could enlarge an atom by pinching your fingers and then spreading them apart, the same way you enlarge a picture on your touchscreen. Every component would grow by the same degree of expansion.
I think everybody has that experience by now. Okay, let's go to Ronald.
Suppose you enlarge an atom's center nucleus to the size of an orange. If you did, you may be surprised to learn that the electron cloud surrounding it would now be 4 miles away. Even more surprising is that between the nucleus and the electron, there would be nothing. There would have to be nothing entering that space, because if nothing did enter it, that would split the atom.
If something did enter it.
If something did enter it, that would split the atom and produce an atom bomb, as remarked above.
Okay.
Go
ahead.
4 miles of nothing surrounding the orange-sized nucleus means the biggest part of the atom, something, is nothing. Surprise. Reality is made up of the atoms that are almost completely nothing. The atoms are so small and so determined to stay together that we cannot detect all that nothing space. But the composition of our reality is mostly nothing.
Okay, that registers that read well for you, Dan?
Well, it's the motion and the field that it creates, it generates, right? It causes, a field. Yeah.
There's nothing in space, though. There's nothing in that space.
Yeah, but like when you look at, say, the rings of Saturn, you can see them spinning, right? But around the other side, if you were to reverse it, you're into a double toroid field. And the point being, there's the motion itself causes a condition, a field.
Right. But okay, so you can say what a field of motion. The way I understand what they've written about is that there
There's
may,
definitely gaps. Yes, of course.
so that's my point is that matter is composed mostly of nothing. That's all I'm saying. There's mostly nothing there. So now I go to the next level. You read.
Okay, mostly nothing. What about the little something of which we are composed? That little something comes from the energy particles of the atom. They are a positive charge surrounded by a negative charge. Plus 1 minus 1 equals 0. Stated in reverse, 0 equals plus 1 minus 1. 0 is also called nothing. You might say that the laws of quantum mechanics that existed before the Big Bang, before there was any little something, took a piece of nothing, 0, named one half a positive proton, and the other half of a negative electron, and just by naming them so, got something. Repeat that a gazillion times, forming plus 2s and minus 2s, plus 3s and minus 3s, etc. Then pair minus with a plus 2 and a plus 1, or even just a plus 2, making it a little off, and so on. You reach the complex universe we inhabit.
So what I'm saying is that the law of quantum mechanics, which I substituted, I allowed us to think of. I gave the scientists their due and said, let's call God quantum mechanics, the laws of quantum mechanics that existed before the Big Bang, because that's what we know, that's what they've proven. So what did they do, those laws? They took a piece of nothing, which is 0. There was nothing there. And they named one half, just out of capricious, positive proton, named the other half a negative electron, so you still got nothing, because plus 1 and minus 1 is 0. And then you repeat that many, many times, gazillion times, using plus 1s and minus 1s, plus 2s and minus 2s, plus 3s and minus 3s, and so on, all opposites, and maybe even sometimes missing a little part. And you populate the universe with all kinds of.
Yeah, but we can't cloud the difference between matter and immaterial forces, right?
I'm sorry?
I said we can't cloud the difference between a force and matter. I mean, you can't. Science has never equated matter and force.
No, they have. They have. That's my point. Is E equals mc squared. The m is the matter, and the E is the energy, the forces. That's what it is. That's all they've done. They've just equated everything into it's either energy or it's matter or it's speed of light. That's the speed. So by scientists' own estimation, what they've done is said that the whole universe is.
Yeah, they're talking about energy.
Well, energy makes up matter. E equals mc squared. You've got speed, you've got matter, you've got energy. It's all, they say everything's composed of that. So what have you got?
When you get variance, in like I said before we came online, the difference between a particle and wave at a quantum level, once you have particle and wave separation, you're now dealing with two specific constants. And if a wave's moving slower than the particle hits the wave and gains mass, and mass starts to increase. But the Einstein's formula doesn't change.
Particle hits the wave is sort of like the E and the c squared, which is the wave part, the speed part of it. The wave has to have a speed, otherwise it doesn't exist. So I'm sure, I don't know that they have it all worked out, but I'm just showing that if you take the components of what they have, all they've done is describe nothing by dividing it into names of this and that, but it's all, when you collapse everything together, it's all nothing, because that's where it came from.
It's not that simple, right? Yeah,
of course it's not simple.
We got to avoid a oversimplification, right?
Well, I don't know. I'm saying that we can see the simplicity with which it began. That's part of my argument.
But then, yeah, everything has been trying to unify the four fundamental forces with gravity, or a unified field theory they're trying to keep unified field theory based with what E equals mc squared shows. I mean, nothing's broken Einstein's theory yet, but they've had to postulate beyond the idea.
Right. Okay. So I'm not, I'm not professing that I understand all their calculations and formulas and so on, but I'm just trying to deal with the basic ideas that they're proposing and point out that they've taken nothing and given it names, such as energy,
And called it something.
and called it something, which is, well, God. I'm proposing that we think of that's how God created the whole universe. There's nothing there besides God. So, but if you think it's all a figment of God's imagination, take you back to the Twitter version. If you think of God, think of this and think of that, and offsetting this, and offsetting
Einstein's
that.
E equals mc squared was so large that they stopped calling anything laws after that. The point being, the ramifications of it were so deep that they stopped calling things laws. They realized they were entering into quantum theory, and what they thought of as traditional laws of nature no longer were called laws of nature after Einstein.
Maybe that's kind of what I'm saying in the next paragraph. Ronald, do you want to jump in here and say anything on this?
It's all beyond me, honestly.
Okay. All right. So
it's really out of my league. It's physics.
Okay.
I've never done any study of it at school. Never got the opportunity to.
Right. It is overwhelming. Sometimes I'm also overwhelmed by it.
I do understand what you're getting at, though. At the present, they've given names to nothing to make it qualify to something, but it's still nothing.
Right. Okay. So build on that and read the next paragraph.
Indeed, the latest scientific theories equate all mass, material, energy with information, aka names. This information consists of positive and negatives, zeros and ones in a digital ease. Scratch below the surface and there is nothing of real substance except data. For example, our skeleton, our nervous system, our blood vessels, organs, and neural work. Our whole being is a collection of related data inside a database that comprises us. The same is true for every item in the universe. You can learn more about the universe as a database from the Dallas Science Faith Conference 2020 YouTube video referenced earlier.
Okay. Dan?
Yeah, the only problem is that it sounds stilted to say quantum mechanics named something. Maybe scientists could consider renaming the quantum forces that produce the Big Bang as God, which does suggest any intelligence and personality capable of giving names. We don't need anything more than intelligence and personality, like sin, salvation, reward, punishment, or the like, but nothing less. Either, after all, it is a
nothing less either.
Nothing less either.
Right.
After all, it is scientifically inaccurate to obscure the presence of intelligence and personality, even though their exact measure remains undefined. Yeah, science only quantifies the measurable. It doesn't deal with generally the realm of ideas. Only in postulation, right?
Well, they're starting to now because they're recognizing that all material stuff is really just data, which is just information. So they're starting to recognize that when you get out to the heart of it, everything is really a data network, and just plus ones and minuses. Well, in digitalese, ones and zeros. That's how you express everything in digital language, ones and zeros. And that's what all it is. It's everything's data. Read one more paragraph. Admittedly,
Admittedly, if scientists ever did consider using the name God, they would first have to negotiate with the religious authorities who have been in charge of that name.
Okay, let's go back to Ronald.
We are prepared to accept that God can create something from nothing, the scientists could say, but not that God is all-knowing, because quantum mechanics can't predict what will be created. No evidence of heaven and hell either, and all they imply. Thrilled to have an offer from the scientists who have been giving them a whooping and putting aside the heaven and hell problem for the moment, the religious authorities might open their minds to say, very well, act of creation has to be unpredictable because of it came from a plan. It would have come from something, not nothing. So maybe what is coming next isn't known even to God until God creates it.
I don't know if I should enlarge on this thought, but I'm saying that, well, somebody wants to really think about this. If you want to talk about God as just something unpredictable coming, which is what the scientists do, say that there's just a data coming up. So I'm sorry, what I'm putting here is the religious authorities have to exceed, so they can say, well, we believe in creation. Well, creation has to be unpredictable by its nature, because if it came from a plan, then it would be, I'm thinking of creating something from nothing. If it came from a plan, it wouldn't be coming from nothing, it would be coming from the plan. So when you talk about creating something, which is how the Torah opens, God is creating, it has to be just coming of itself. It's just a creative act out of from nowhere. Even God could be a little surprised by the thought, because it's a creative thought. It came from nowhere. So maybe what's coming next isn't known even to God until God creates it. I don't have a problem with that.
A notion of a plan, yeah, sure. I mean, I guess from the some of the latest stuff, I understand, like Stephen Hawking radiation, when things flow into a black hole and the matter is squashed, it doesn't disappear, but it gets shot back out as radiation, and there's postulates that inevitably things go like with dark matter and dark energy. They're postulating now. I mean, things may eventually go to the big crunch and restart. I mean, that's a postulate, but the data is never lost when it goes past an event horizon of a singularity. Whatever falls in doesn't come back out directly, but Hawking radiation showed plainly that there is emission from a black hole, and black holes can eventually die, but they also can swallow up everything in their path. Yeah, there's a lot of ideas floating around out there, but
Right. Okay, I'm trying to simplify
yeah.
it on one hand and give just a different level of sophistication. But we're at time. We're a little over time, so I promise to keep it to half an hour. So we'll come back to this tomorrow. We'll start again in the middle of here, and I see certainly invite anybody that has any comments or things. I see that this is it could, either you can accept it at a simple level that it makes sense as it goes and build on that, or does it need a little more elaboration? I'd love to hear from any of our watchers. And you have the text. If you've sent me your email, then you have your very own copy attached to your email already to review it. So thank you, everybody, for attending. Good night, and I hope to see you all tomorrow.
All right, folks. Yeah, half hour hit and run meetings. I love them. Yeah, thanks for everybody joining us on Noah Hyde World Center social media. We hope you enjoyed this. If you got any comments or you want to participate, feel free to send me a message and a comment. I'll make sure you get a link that you can sign up, and make sure that Rabbi Schwartz gets the email and adds you to the list. And appreciate you all coming, and thank you so much, Rabbi Schwartz. And we're going to sign out for tonight. Have a wonderful day.
Night.
No.